Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about the growing confidence in a large and powerful winter storm. And now this thing is still far out and there's no exact details on where this will occur or how much snow will be dropped. But again, if you've been watching my channel for the last few days, I've been talking about a massive pattern change that will be occurring as we head into December. And I would be absolutely floored if with such a pattern change we would not see a big system. Now the models have been going back and forth for quite a while, but they are beginning to narrow in on a potential area where the snow may occur, and I want to give you a few possibilities of what this system may look like. I want to start off with the European AI model. This is a model that is relatively new and is not really tried and tested yet. However, there have been, I've been noticing a little bit of consistency with this model with regards to the placement of this potential system, and it seems as if the other models have kind of followed in its footsteps. So I definitely want to show it, even though I cannot really show you the rain and slash frozen differentiation on this map. It's just all green. But notice at the very top of the right corner of the screen, we are looking at hour 174 out in the future. So this is now Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving, and this isn't really the system that I'm speaking of in, I guess, the title, but this is another one that is going to be potentially very impactful for areas north. So especially if you live across Manitoba and Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, Regina, Saskatoon, Brandon, all those cities there potentially could be impacted by this system. Now the European models, including the AI model, which I'm showing you right here, is showing a much stronger system compared to what the GFS models are showing, and I will show you that in just a second. Notice that what we do have is, and the models have been showing this particular one for a while, and they've been actually pretty consistent. They're showing a separate piece, a very moisture loaded but really disorganized slug of moisture to the south. And then there's the northern piece that is a lot more wrapped around. It's a lot more elegant, if you will, but it doesn't have that much moisture, and it's pretty quick moving. However, because of how these systems interact, according to this model, which has been consistently showing this, it increases a intensification process across this upper low pressure, and combined with the really strong high pressure behind it, it creates some very ferocious winds, potentially even blizzard-like conditions, with very heavy snow as some of that moisture gets wrapped up into here. Additionally, this system right here slows the movement of this first one further up north, and that could result in quite a bit of heavy snow across some of the areas. Especially this model is targeting Manitoba and extreme southeastern Saskatchewan there. So that is definitely one thing to watch. But another thing that this model has been showing in the long range is following this system. So this is now the weekend of Thanksgiving. This is Black Friday, if you will, November 28th. As we go into that weekend, you can see that there's definitely cold air present across the United States. There's moisture from the Gulf beginning to surge northward. There's a Pacific component to this. So those are the ingredients you need for a big winter storm. I mean, I listed all of them. The cold air, Pacific moisture, Pacific, I guess, initiation, and then the Gulf of Mexico moisture, which is really what's going to fuel these systems. So you can see that it's pretty broad. The one way you could tell this is snow right here is the 540 line. I don't know how visible that is, but it's that little blue line. That is roughly the freezing line. So anything above that would be snow. Anything below that would be most likely either a mix for a little bit and then probably rain. So do know that the AI model in here shows that system really regurgitating quite a bit of moisture across the United States here into the first days of December. And kind of off that cold front of that first system, we see the second one develop into a potential snow system that brings snow a little bit further south. We actually see this pretty often in the winter, where we have powerful cold front meets moisture, the trough of cold air kind of digs around it, and it wraps itself into that. So that is potentially what the AI model here is showing. This is the model run prior to the one I just showed you, still the same model, the AI one. And notice that it shows a very similar thing, right? So we initially see that slug of moisture somewhere across the United States, and then followed by a potential second system developing from the south and bringing another surge of moisture. So obviously there's some differences from model run to model run, but the main thesis is there. This could potentially be two separate systems. They may not be as distinguished because of the fact that one kind of gets birthed from the other one, but this is definitely something that we'll have to watch for. And again, that time frame is late Thanksgiving week and into the early part of the week following into December. So now I want to take a look at the European model, the operational regular one, not the AI enhanced one. And do note that this is right now a Tuesday of next week, and this is again that first kind of system that could affect potentially the viewers of my channel further up north across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, so again potentially targeting Regina, Brandon, Winnipeg, Saskatoon probably would be a little too far south of it. Initially though, a little bit of snow most likely, as it's kind of a clipper system at first. And do note, just like the AI one, this shows the potential kind of merging of these two. Now that particular one, the AI one, definitely shows a little bit more of a slowdown from that system and more of an intensification, as this system kind of still pretty impressive snowfall rates and snowfall totals from a scenario like this, but just not as impressive as the other model was showing. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But again, the consistency with this storm and this system, because it's less further out, is a lot higher. Regardless, notice that after that we see that cool air kind of spill into the United States, dragging out a lot of the warm air, but the moisture is not far, and it's really remaining across a lot of the Gulf Coast. And the models are saying essentially, and they have been showing for a very long time, that I've been mentioning, that the cold air, once it comes and the warm air meets it, it will create some sort of a system. So the European model you could see similar to the AI one around that weekend time frame of Thanksgiving. So yes, pretty far out, but I'm not trying to necessarily show a system and dissect its exact details of where the snow will fall, but you could see that every model is showing some sort of its variety or its version of this system. You can see the European kind of keeps it disorganized, keeps the snow further north at first, and then potentially a band further south. Either way, a pretty massive system, and again, it is very far out. Normally I would not be talking about a system this far out, but again, with the very high confidence in this pattern change occurring and all these ingredients being there, again, it would probably floor me if we would not see some sort of a snowstorm out of this around this time frame. Exactly where this sets up remains to be seen, and you can see after this we see continued cold and additional chances for snow and precipitation. So thus far we've been focusing mainly on the European model. I want to now focus on the GFS. And this one, like the European ones, does show a large system, a large snowstorm, but it does a few things differently. And interestingly enough, the things that are different to and unique to the GFS have actually been very consistent with it. So it makes me wonder if potentially the GFS is onto something, even though I don't really have an AI version of it to compare to, as the Europeans do, the European models do. Let's start, at least for now, focusing on this first storm. So notice the GFS shows it, and again, it's those two pieces, that southern slug of moisture, very disorganized but moisture rich, and then the northern piece, not as moisture rich, but a more compact and, again, as I mentioned, elegant system. So do note that the GFS does not integrate these systems quite as well. It does end up still producing quite a bit of snow across, again, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Ontario there. I will show you the snowfall amounts on some of those, and you can see it intensifies. So again, the confidence on this system occurring is pretty high, this first one. It's the second one where things get interesting. So now, the GFS for a few days, if you recall, the European model and its AI, I guess, cousin, have been showing a system, a storm, around that late weekend time frame into more of December at this point, December 1st, that Monday, Tuesday. While at GFS, it does something interesting, which isn't completely unheard of. It's actually pretty usual. With this first blast of air, what it does, maybe it's because it kind of orients that first system a little differently. What it allows the models, or I guess what it allows the features here to do, is come together out ahead of this cold, and you can see that we see already a lot more coverage of snow on Friday. At this same time frame, the European is not showing anything resembling what the GFS is showing on the 28th. And in fact, it has that lobe of cold air, which you can probably vaguely see right here, a lot further ahead, while the GFS slows it down. And that's the key difference. So the GFS, because it's so much slowed down, it allows a lot more moisture and potentially a system out ahead of it to brew. So this would definitely be a scenario that throws a wrench into things, as it's still a system, but it's a GFS variety. It's GFS version. Now, some of the earlier model runs were not only showing a system here, but then the GFS went on to show an equally powerful system that the Europeans were showing, that the European model was showing. So the GFS potentially trying to identify two separate systems, while the European was mainly focusing on one prior to this original upcoming system, which I don't want to call that winter storm because it's for the most of the viewing area, it's going to be rain. But do note, as we push into Saturday, Sunday, we see a potential monster developing across the kind of Ohio Valley. The new model run showed that first system right there. You can see across the eastern seaboard. So again, it's been consistently showing that one for a little bit now. And then it goes on to develop that second system, which a European model are more akin to showing. So the GFS potentially showing two here. So there's a little bit of a difference here. Potentially a big system followed by another big system, or potentially just kind of again that first storm moving away, that cold air blasting through with not as much activity, and then that large system setting up. If you were to take the European perspective, either way, the confidence is growing in some sort of a system developing here. To wrap this video up, I want to show you a few ensembles and show you how they've been increasing the snowfall predictions in general across the United States. So this is the European ensemble. It's over 51 models combined into one image. And this is what the most current projection is out of all the models in that thing kind of compressed together. So you can see it doesn't really show a defined track of a storm. It just shows a general snow swath. But there are some hints of where it is targeting the heavier snow. So notice that 2 model runs ago, this is what it looked like, right? So kind of, again, all over the place. If you look what happened yesterday at midnight, this is what it showed. So kind of a retreat of that snowfall. And then with today's most recent model run, it's re-intensifying that snow signal. And if you're really observant, you would notice that there are some darker blues into this area. And that would be aligned with what the AI model and the European operational was showing, potentially a system targeting here. Notice they're not showing as much snow across the east compared to the GFS, which I'll show you in just a bit because they're not really big proponents of that. The next group of models I want to show you is the GEFS family. So this is the one that consists of the GFS operational one, the one that showed that system potentially across the Northeast there. And do note that this is what it looked like as of yesterday at midnight. This is what that snowfall graphic looked like for the next 10 days. Again, all the models combined. You could see it was pretty hard to make out anything. Obviously, the mountain ranges across the west had a lot of snow there, potentially across Quebec, Ontario. But as we've gotten closer and closer to today's run, you could see that this was today in the morning. The snowfall kind of colors increased there, increasing it across, again, Ontario, Quebec, New England. And then the most recent one that's fully in, you could see is beginning to, just like the European model, highlight an area of concentrated snow here somewhere across Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska. So that's one area where, again, I believe we have a higher chance of that system occurring, that big one. But again, let's not forget potentially a second swath of snow somewhere in here, which the models are, at least the GFS is slightly suggesting here that we could be seeing. So again, that would be out ahead of this big one, at least the main one that the models have been focused on. So we will have to wait and see, and we will definitely have to watch these trends as we go forward. The last family and group of models I want to show you is the European AI one. So again, this is the first one I showed you, or at least the first one that's part of this family. So these are many models. It isn't just one. It's probably, again, close to 50 models combined into one graphic. This is what it looked like yesterday as of the same time. You could see, again, kind of the general area across Iowa and Nebraska being targeted, and you could tell that it's a little bit of a concentrated targeted area by the ensembles, because further up north there's less, further south there's less, so it's kind of the specific area. Obviously the west coast looks active with all these mountain ranges also seeing snow. Quebec, Ontario, really active. That seems to be the case with all these models. And then do note that across the northeast it maintains some snow. With the most recent model run, this is what it currently looks like. So you can see that the snow has definitely increased in, I guess, chance, likelihood, probability, because the colors are darker, so more models are showing that. Across the northeast, the colors do remain, so we'll have to stay, I guess, watchful for that. And then do note that the colors really exploded across Ontario and Quebec. So every day we are getting higher and higher confidence, and the models, again, are seemingly targeting somewhere in here with some sort of a winter storm potential, again, around that late Thanksgiving weekend time frame and into early December, while the GFS potentially is also showing some sort of a system that we'll have to watch for out here. So potentially 2 winter storms. And then let's not forget that first one across Canada, which will be occurring in the next few days. That is basically it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. I'll keep you guys updated as this weather pattern becomes more and more crazy. Take care.